Hello, welcome back. This is episode 7 of Trash Talkin.
I'm Reg.
I'm me, and today we're going to be talking about a lot of Cowboys, only Cowboys. This is a good episode for me. Last week we talked about your Broncos. We talked about LeBron and Wilt and whose record will be broken first. This week I'm going to go off. It's been a bad couple 2 days in free agency. I'm going to lose my mind a little bit on here. And we're bringing on our guest, Rob Colosimo. He coached 7 years at Myer and won 4 provincial championships. He knows a thing or two about football. We talk a little Cowboys at the gym every now and then when I see him. So we're going to pull on Rob and start talking some Cowboys right now. There he is.
How you doing?
What's going on?
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, I can't say that right now, but I like the outfit. I like the flag in the back.
Yeah.
Represent, and we got a button. Yeah, we have a button for you. This is Super Bowl 12. My dad wanted to show you this.
Oh, awesome!
You can't live that far. I know. He doesn't get that we haven't won 30 years.
You realize we have 2 Super Bowls.
So I'm not
last made the playoffs.
Not really gonna gloat about that. It's Super Bowl 12. We're now at Super Bowl 50, like what, 8 or 7. So yeah, I'm not gonna gloat about that. We're gonna talk some Cowboys today. We're gonna get a little controversial with Dak about we're gonna talk about our window and the woes of free agency because we haven't really done anything. We said we were going all in, and nothing has happened. So I'm going to ask you this question first, then I'll go to you, and then I'll end it off. Rob, do you think we should pay Dak, or do you think we should let the contract play out one more year?
I think we have to pay Dak. Like I said, a lot of people are going to complain and say he's not worth being the highest paid NFL quarterback. He will be for a short time, the same as his last contract. He signed right away, was highest paid quarterback for a very short time. Within a year, I think he was about number 7 on the list. And that's where he is as a quarterback. He's top 10, and he was paid accordingly. The rate is going up all the time. So you're going to think it's ridiculous money. And in no time, when other quarterbacks sign, they're going to eclipse the money that he's making. And that's what I believe. We can't trade him without his permission, and we can't franchise tag him either. We can play around with his salary this year and reduce that to a little over $1 million with bonuses. I'm not an expert on that, the way they play around with contracts, but you read sometimes people talking, he's going to take this much hit on the cap this year. He won't. They'll disperse that. They'll play around with that, and they'll change it into a bonus. He won't take that much of a hit. So I'm thinking they have to keep him, and it's going to be for at least a couple more years. And he's producing. He was a top 5 quarterback, Pro Bowl quarterback this year. So as much as he's hated because he's a Cowboys quarterback, he's producing, and the stats show it, you know.
I'm with you there. What do you think?
I can't believe anybody would pay that guy $60 million a year to be Mr. October of the NFL. The guy has most garbage yards in professional sports. When they're up 20 and down 20, he is your man. But when time is in the clutch, he's not going to get you over the hump. No. The guy is a regular season. He has a great record, but if you go to his record against bad teams, which a lot of times he's playing, it's very bad. He's 2-5 in the playoffs. How he can be the highest paid player in the NFL is absolutely amazing. And when you're paying, and you know this, when you're paying one person over 20% of your salary cap, how can the rest of the team be that good? Because you can't afford to pay the other players. I think they should just keep him one more year. They have Trey Lance waiting in the wings if they think anything of him. But if they don't get over the hump this year with him and get to a championship game or a Super Bowl, I think the time has come to cut, because you could save so much money in a year. You got all these young players that you're going to have to start paying, like CD Lamb and all them. You have to think of the team ahead of him. Is he a good quarterback? Yes, a top 10 quarterback, but not the highest paid quarterback. There's no way in the world that he should be the highest paid quarterback or player in the NFL. I think he's very good, but when the chips are on the line and the game is on the line against good teams, if you look at him this year, he played Washington twice, the Giants twice, Arizona, New England, and the Jets without Aaron Rodgers. They were 4-4 against 500 teams, and if it wasn't for Dan Campbell being an idiot, they could have been 3-5. So you take him against good teams and the better quarterbacks and the better coaches in the league, I think that time is up for him this year. I would give him this year, Evan, and I would say Trey Lance time.
I think Phil's better because here we go, eclipse Omaha, and you're upset about it.
No, I think if you ask Dak's brother, then he'll tell you a different story. So, Rob, I got to ask you, why did Jerry Jones go get Trey Lance?
I think because it was a cheap deal and he was out there. He was a third string quarterback. He's being wasted with the Niners. I thought he'd give him a chance and see what he can do. I don't think that he's there yet. I don't think he's proven anything. On the roster, that's what I say. You get rid of Prescott, which is hard to find a quarterback. We've all gone through this, the Bills, the Cowboys, to find a franchise quarterback. So until they have somebody on the roster that can replace them, you don't get rid of them, for one thing. Cooper Rush, Trey Lance, they're not the answer, neither one of them. I mean, Cooper Rush gets put on waivers every year. Nobody picks him up. The only year he was picked up was when the year for the Giants there, when their coach went over there and he picked him up. But otherwise, nobody wants Cooper Rush. He's not a starting quarterback. Trey Lance has not proven that either, and he's third on the depth chart. We'll see if he moves up. I mean, you always hope that they got a steal and a gem there, but until they get somebody else, and like I said, Dak will be the highest paid quarterback. Is he worth it? Is he the best quarterback in the league? No, absolutely not. Top 5, yes. This year he's top 5, top 10, most of his career top 10. It's hard to find that guy, a quarterback like that, to put up those numbers. Again, when you say he's failed in the playoffs, that's a team stat. I always say that, not an individual stat. When you're talking about games won, everything else, they made Dak throw, 50, 60 times against Green Bay? That's horrible. The running game was not there. It was horrible.
His 2 interceptions in the first half put him in a 27-0 hole. One first touchdown and one early on. So he puts him in a hole, and then he tries to bring them back after. I'm not saying he is definitely a top 10 quarterback.
I agree. That first interception, I don't think was an interception. I think that was pass interference. But you had a small receiver there who got manhandled on that too. But to me, that was pass interference. Hey, it happens. The calls, you get the calls, you don't get the calls. The second one was on Dak. Absolutely. Didn't see the linebacker. Horrible. It happens. But what did he do? 95% of his other throws, 99%. They're fantastic. His stats are there. People say stats don't matter. They do. When you're gauging an individual player, and when I coached, you have to look at film. You got to look at what that player is doing on the field. Not, we didn't win the game, let's blame that player. Well, if that player was doing his job, then it's not his fault. You got over 40 guys contributing to the game there. And I think Dak did his part. He had a couple bad throws, but majority were not bad throws. The running game's horrible, and I agree with a lot that said that. And I think even Jerry Jones said that. The running game is not there, and the run defense is not there. And those were the 2 biggest problems this year.
But if you notice, Dallas are the one team, Dallas and Buffalo, that get away from the running game right away. They tend to, if they're down by a touchdown, they tend to get rid of the running game for some reason, and there's no need for it early on. Yeah.
And you see that with Buffalo. I mean, sometimes throwing ducks down the field when they got a great drive going, and there's no need for that, So, but I see that too. They get away from the running game. But it's hard when you're running out of time to sit there and kill the clock for the other team and run too. But they just didn't have it this year. Pollard didn't come back after his, broken leg last year. I didn't see it. Rico Dowdle, the backup, decent, but not great. So when you don't have a running game and you're putting all that pressure on Dak, the line is aging too. Now we lost our center this year. Yeah. We're going to have to replace him, left tackle as well. It's tough. People keep saying how great the Cowboys offensive line was. That was a few years ago. The defense, I thought we had it. The first half of the season, I thought we had the best defense in the league, and then they fell off because finally they were exposed with that no run defense. Again, Buffalo did it the best, and just exposing that. And let's just run the ball the whole game because you can do that against the Cowboys. And I'm shocked that other teams didn't realize. I'm glad they didn't realize that because we've had no run-stuffing linebackers for a long, long time. We picked up Parsons, which I thought was a great pickup, but then he's such a valuable edge rusher that we had to put him on the edge, which left us with Marquise Bell, who's a converted safety playing linebacker. That's not going to stuff the run. Overshawn we drafted him last year, tore his ACL in preseason. Yeah. That took us out a linebacker there. Van Der Esch was never a run-stuffing linebacker. I never liked him, really. He can't get off a block either. Once he's engaged in a block, he's done. He's not that. We need that big run stuffing linebacker, and I wish we would pick him up in free agency. That's what we need to do. Is a proven middle linebacker. We'll see what the draft does. Unfortunately, free agency, we get nothing.
Yeah, we don't really do much.
What do you think?
That's why you do have to pay Dak, because you have nothing else. I love Dak. I'm somewhere in the middle of you two right now, because I believe that if you're going to extend Dak, you should have done it 2 weeks ago so that you could pick up a Derrick Henry or go get Patrick Queen, who was at the top of my list. You needed a linebacker, and you got Eric Hendricks, who I would have been excited about 5 years ago. I'm excited that we finally made a move, but he had 117 tackles last year. Extending Dak. So what I think is going to happen, I think they will extend Dak still. They have to. You have to pay CD, Micah Parsons. You have to think about all the guys you have to play in a couple years too. Tyler Smith, Deron Bland. I hope Mozzie Smith turns out to be a guy we have to pay. But you're going to have to pay people. I assume it'll be 3 years, $105 million. I think the Dak is a choker thing is kind of overblown. They were talking about this on First Things First the other day, and it really made a lot of sense. Think about the last 10 years and think about the games Dak's really choked in the playoffs. 2016, rookies against Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. We lost. We lost in the last second field goal. That happens. 2018, you lost to the eventual Super Bowl representatives from the NFC, the Rams, in the second round. 2021, you lost to the Niners. That was a close game. You were in the wild card. A lot of people picked the Niners to beat us. 2022, you lose to the Niners at their house. They were better than us. And now this year was the only time I can say Dak choked. He was terrible. I was laying right here, right in front of here on the ground after that pick six, my face to the ground. Like, he did it again. I was all upset. He did it again.
Slow start, I agree. Slow start to the game and put him in a hole. I agree with Reg on that too, yeah.
And he did. Dak put us in a hole. I can defend and be a Dak apologist all I want. I as much as I say the defense did not give us a chance to get out of that hole, Dak lost us that game. Dak, Dan Quinn, Mike McCarthy. Put them all up on their 3 pedestals, and you can throw tomatoes at them and blame them. That was their fault. But I'm not going to – football is – the playoffs in football is like March Madness. I'm not going to look at a 1 seed and say you sucked all year because you had one bad game. I can't look at 36 touchdowns and 9 picks and say, well, one bad game. You have to pay that guy. He was not a top 5 quarterback this year.
Before that game,
he was a top 2 quarterback. He was better than Mahomes this year. Look at Dak every year. His points above. That's my favorite stat. Points above expected. It's my favorite stat. Hockey, baseball, football, basketball. How much do you help your team? Dak every year is 1, 2, or 3. You know who's usually behind? Patrick Mahomes.
And you shouldn't be paid more than the guy that's winning Super Bowls. In my eyes, in any sport, they always say rings, and playoff percentage. That I agree. He should make $40 million when all these other clowns are getting $40 million. He deserves it. But to be paid above guys that have done more in the playoff, that's all I'm saying.
But we all know that what you're paid is not what you are. It's about a market. It's about the need. The need at quarterback. Derrick Henry is probably a better player than Dak Prescott, right? He's getting $60 million over 2 years. The running back is not as big of a need as the quarterback. You need that guy. And I was at a gig when the Trey Lance trade happened. I was I loved Trey Lance, even though he only played a couple games in college. I just thought the physical was there. It hasn't panned out yet. That move was a Jerry going, look at me. That was him trying to be the guy. He's said since then he did not consult anyone. He didn't talk to Steven, which I wish he would do more often. He didn't talk to Mike McCarthy, Will McClay. He made the move on his own. It really didn't make much sense. Yeah, it didn't make much sense. I don't like Cooper Rush. I appreciate what he did, but I really turned bitter towards Cooper Rush when everyone was saying he should be the guy. Like, I was almost rooting for my team to fail. It was like,
Skip Bayless.
Yeah, Skip Bayless every week. Like, when we lost the Eagles, I said, I know we lost, but we will be very happy when we finally get to have Dak come back and do his thing. I think Dak, if you watch him every week, which I do, and I root for him because he's my childhood quarterback. I know I loved Romo, but it's like watching your kid grow up. I've watched Dak grow from being that guy who we had to run a Dak-friendly offense for to being the guy who can sling it down the field. Watching him every week, he was the reason this team went this year. It was not because of Micah. It was not because of CD. CD was fantastic. Our run game is horrible, and people need to stop living in the past with the offensive line. It is not good. It looks good because of him. my favorite Dak stat is we had the highest pressure percentage in the league and one of the lowest amount of sacks. He gets the ball out quick.
He
moves around.
Really
The run game was terrible. The best game for Dak this year was the Chargers game. The stats might not show it, but he took control of the game, and he turned our season around then after a terrible game in San Francisco when, I don't know, me and my dad were ready to call it quits. I was done. I was pretty much done with the team. But he is the only guy on this team right now who I go, we need him. Like I love Micah Parsons, but I don't hear his name a lot towards the end of the year anymore. I hear Dak's name.
He's gone.
And, Dak is dependable. He's going to get 3 years, 105, I believe. That's the price range for him. And it's going to look bad for about 20 minutes. And then in 2 years, like when Jalen Hurts got that contract, I went, really? Like, you're going to give Jalen Hurts that money, but he's your quarterback. And when we talk about not proving something in the playoffs and against 500 teams, I mean, this year really, really irked me that Lamar got MVP. But he gets no hate for some reason for how bad he's been in the playoffs.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
It's not even the same thing. It's way worse in my opinion. Like we're mad after that game. What did we say about why the Ravens lost? They lost because they made the MVP throw the ball. That was the reason they lost the game, because they made him throw the ball too much.
Hardest job.
Which is his thing. That's what you were supposed to do. So when I look at Dak, and I might be overrating him, and I also think it's by default because I don't think the quarterbacks in the league right now are like they were 5-10 years ago when top 5 was Rodgers, Brady, Manning, Roethlisberger. But it's Mahomes, Josh Allen, then who?
Justin Herbert.
What's he done though?
He's having the team around.
But we've had,
we've had overrated.
And Mike McCarthy.
I would take Justin Herbert over Dak Prescott.
Physically, I will.
He can throw. He can throw.
I watched him that Chargers game against us, and it was like Dak was the reason we won. Justin Herbert was the reason they lost. Like, he missed wide open throws 5-6 times. I love Justin Herbert. I loved him out of Oregon.
Play of the year.
But he's been Justin Herbert has not had it great. But Justin Herbert has had Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. I love Gerald Everett as a receiving tight end. I don't love him as a blocking tight end. I mean, we overrate Dak's teams, and it's because he's wearing this. You know that. I know that.
100%.
It's because he has a star.
Yep.
Other teams. Do you remember when
It's
Dak?
because of his owner.
And it's because of his owner.
It's because of his owner. He builds them up.
And his owner's never given in to loving Dak. He was never to Dak like Romo was.
That's right.
Romo was his boy, his little kid. Dak has always been, because Dak fought Jerry for that contract extension in 2021. That was ugly. But to make a
they
very
could have signed him sooner for a lot less money too. Then they waited, and then they they tagged him, and then they had to pay him more money finally because he proved it to him again. And it's quarterbacks like that when they're in that year where they have to prove it. He's proven it year after year. It's not just 1 year. All of a sudden he has a good year. He's got the lowest interception, or one of the lowest interception rates, in history. And people say, oh, he's a turnover king because last year he threw a lot of interceptions playing with a broken thumb, so you'll never get, and the same thing going with Lamar to the end now and going down to MVP. Are they going to pick Dak? No way. They'll never pick Dak. There's no way. So,
but last year interceptions was very important. But Josh Allen threw about 21 this year, and it was, he should be the MVP.
He always does.
He always does it. I don't see. I get it. Josh Allen is a superhuman, but when you look at production, I don't see that much of a difference, Dak and Josh Allen at all. And I love
Josh, like you said, reminds me a lot of Lamar. Like I said, there's so many games that Buffalo wins because of Josh's legs. And then the games they lose, you see what happened. Why did Josh stop running? They can't stop him. And that's what happens. And like I said, and then they'll start throwing some ducks down the field and you'll be shaking your head. And I talk to a lot of my Bills fans, and I always say, are we going to see good Josh today or bad Josh? Because
Josh will cost them a game every year. 1 or 2 games, Josh Allen will cost them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you don't see that with Dak. You just don't you don't see him. Maybe you see him cost a playoff game like the Packers, but you see Dak win games. And I'm not saying he's better than Josh Allen. I'm just saying we treat those two very differently, and we treat Lamar and Dak very differently. Because if Dak had purple and gold on his jersey, Dak would be a top 3 quarterback eminently every year, and we wouldn't even be talking about an extension.
Like I said, even the Green Bay game there, like, again, he threw over 50 times. You can't have him throw them in that many times in a game. And are you going to have 2 interceptions when you're throwing the ball 50 times? The odds are, sure, you are. That's going to happen. But again, then you got to look back to who else is contributing to this game here. Was there drop passes, things like that? But the running game. You got to have a running game. You have to.
Absolutely. All right, let's segue into another. It's all Cowboys today. It's a great one for me. But this one is not a topic that I am looking forward to. Is the Dallas Cowboys window closing? I'll ask you first, Rob.
It's hard to say. It's too early in the season to say that, and I don't like some of the free agent losses we had. Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler. Quinn's taking up some of those guys. We're losing some edge rushers there. That puts more pressure on Parsons playing every down, being that guy. We got to get some youth, hopefully in the draft. We'll see what we get. Pollard, I'm not unhappy about losing Pollard. I don't think he really showed it this year. I think he showed before that he was a change-up runner, with Zeke before, and he did a good job. But then when he was put in to do it all himself, he had the unfortunate injury too, and I don't think he came back from. We've lost our center too, Bayadesh. That's tough again. We got to fill the offensive line. I hope that we could have kept more of these guys and then just added on to a few holes that we had. But now it's like we have a lot of holes here now. Yeah. And like we said, like usual, the Cowboys don't seem to do too much in free agency. We don't go out and get that big name guy, to fill in spots. I hope they do. And I really hope it's that linebacker. I've been begging for that for years. You got to build a great defense to help out Dak too. You got to have a running game to help out Dak, but Dak's our guy. And I think he will be our guy for a couple of years. And there's nothing you can do about that. If Trey Lance shows it this year and he is phenomenal in preseason, Dak goes down with an injury, or Trey Lance, they decide to put him in, Dak struggles in a game, fantastic. If I see it, I'll believe it, and I'll be all on board for that. But until then, Dak's our guy. We don't have anybody else that I can see on the roster. Maybe they'll get somebody in the draft too that will fill in. I don't see them really picking up anybody in free agency that way or anything. So I think they're happy with their quarterback room right now. So we'll see what happens. But I think it's too early to say the window's closed. They say that for other teams too, San Francisco, Philadelphia, but they're all good teams. We're all up there. You know what I mean? And again, we're talking about good teams. Dak has owned Philadelphia the last 8 years. So that's a good team. And Dak, if you want to say Dak, I shouldn't say Dak because I'm saying again, that's a team stat. It wins. So the Cowboys have owned the Eagles the last 8 years with Dak at the helm. So.
All right. What do you think, Uncle Phil?
I think their window is closing. I think they, as Evan knows, they've had a great team for the last 5 years. They've had all the talent in the world. I think they've been their own worst enemy when it comes to the playoffs. I think they'll never win with Jerry Jones. And I don't know about you, but Mike McCarthy is a bad coach. He has lived off good quarterbacks his whole career. I could have one Super Bowl win with the quarterbacks he's had in his career with Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and now Dak Prescott and the teams he's had. I think that coach is going to cost you a game or two. Like you said, their offensive line is getting older and they're losing players. Their running game isn't as good. Sure, they can throw the ball 50 times a game. They can get 350, 400 yards passing a game, 3 touchdowns. Their defense, I think teams have figured out that go away from Parsons. I think if you watched a lot of their games near the end of the year, teams figured out, don't let Micah Parsons win the game. They were running screens. They were running away from them. They were double blocking them. I saw teams just play a certain offense. Green Bay coached them bad in the playoffs. I mean, there wasn't even, it wasn't even close to the way that guy, a young coach.
I agree.
McCarthy. I think your defense is good. I think, again, you need a linebacker. Your secondary is good. I wouldn't worry about Gilmore. You have to get a running back either in the draft or go pick up maybe Dalvin Cook or somebody like that. You have a great field goal kicker now, so there's.
I'd like to see one in the draft. Yeah,
you can see one in the draft. And
I like young running backs. And again, I kind of disagree with E there a little bit. I wouldn't want Saquon. I don't think he's done anything for several years. He didn't come back strong after his injury years ago. Derrick Henry, I love Derrick Henry, but Derrick Henry's getting old. He's taking a beating. I mean, that position, and I don't know how much longer he's got in him left to do that. But if we can pick up somebody like that in the draft, that would be fantastic. You know, the youth, you need the youth, and I think you need to alternate running backs nowadays. You're not going to get the Emmitt Smiths anymore, pound and pound. Derrick Henry's an exception to the rule, but that's rare. So
yeah. I think Jerry Jones is ruining the team because about 2 months ago, right after the Super Bowl, or a month and a half ago, he come out, you know, when it was quiet and said, "Oh, we're going all in." Well, what does he mean by all in?
Yeah.
He pumps the fans up so much, and then he lets them down. Like, if you're going to go all in, go make some signings. You got Washington, the Giants, all these other teams are signing players, and you're staying status quo with the team you had, and you're losing players on top of that. So to me, I would have. He left Jason Garrett there way too long. He left Mike McCarthy there way too long because, you know, he'll never get a really good coach like Jimmy Johnson was back in the day because nobody's going to put up with him. And I think that's why Belichick wasn't even an option because nobody's put up with that.
Even Zeke was left a couple of years too long. Jason Witten, who I love, I met him before. He's a fantastic guy. One of the best tight ends ever. It was a couple 2 years too long. It was just Dez Bryant, a couple of years too long. And then you hear people now, oh, we need to bring Dez back. It's like, no, we don't need to bring Dez back. We don't need to bring Zeke back. We don't need to bring old guys back anymore. They did phenomenal for their time. But yeah, they stayed a little too long. And I agree, they do that with a lot of players. And I don't know always what that comes down to is the cap and the business part of that. I can't analyze that. I think Jerry gets a lot a criticism that maybe is not him because a lot of it is Stephen Jones, and you got a huge scouting staff, signing staff, everything else there too that's responsible for this. It's not all Jerry Jones, and he's not, you know, taking charge as much as people think. I don't think he has a lot of people around him. This past year, I think there were a couple players short. They went out in the draft and had a horrible draft this year. Mozzie Smith, I hope for him too, and I think the guy's strong as an ox, but he's even said it. Football's not really his biggest love. If football's not your biggest love, you can't be a professional football player. You know, I don't know. They didn't address things in the draft this year. And again, Overshawn, that they got the linebacker that they needed. And I don't know that much about him either. He got hurt too. So this draft year didn't fill in the holes that we were hoping to. And they still, I always say every year, we win the division, we make it to the playoffs, it's a success. You win 12 games, that's a successful season. Playoffs is a whole nother season. It's one and done. It's not hockey, not best of three. So, you know, you have a bad game and you're done. And we've seen that every year. Rarely does the number one seed in the NFL, in the league, win the Super Bowl. It's rare. And why is that? Because it's just one bad game. That's all it takes, you know?
My biggest thing about Jerry Jones, which stands out to me, and this shows a lot, is when Ezekiel Elliott had him over the barrel there, when he wasn't even in line to renew his contract because he had 2 years left on his rookie contract, and he was out there in Hawaii or wherever he was hanging out, and Jerry Jones turned around and paid him when he didn't have to, and he sort of ruined the rookie contracts for that, and it ended up backfiring on him.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, they extend in the rookie contracts to keep him going and stuff like that, and to pay him for what he's done because he made peanuts for being the best running back in the league. But again, Jerry Jones, I don't know totally that makes that decision, or is it a staff of 20 that recommend that, and Jerry makes the announcement. But is it really him with all of that? I would think it's more of a group decision on that, and I trust them more than anything, and that's why I say with them, the professionals, the players that say that Dak Prescott is one of the best leaders in the league and one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, I got to go with their opinions on that over mine or the peanut gallery that says, that he's an interception king, or he's got to go. So hey, that's just my opinion.
What do you think, Ev?
Closed is too much for me. The window is not closed. Closing. Yeah, when your quarterback's 30, it's closing a little bit. I think Dak's, if we have him around I think he's still got 4 or 5 more years of being elite. I think the franchise itself is kind of pathetic. It's been horrible the past couple years. Great team. I think that's the problem. We have a good team, and every year we win 12 games. And I was talking the other day. I said, because you know, with Cowboy fans, either we're on top of the world or we're very pessimistic, optimism or pessimism. And you know, someone said, we're not even going to make the playoffs next year. I said, that's not true. We're going to be an 11-12 win team and nothing will change. And
But again, Dak could go down the second week of the season and we're done. Just like we saw with Romo back in the day too. As soon as Romo would go down, it's like, oh, great. Until Dak came along. But again, Dak goes down, Trey Lance fits in, or somebody else that we draft. You never know. Look at Purdy. Purdy came out of nowhere. I thought San Francisco was done. You get to your third string quarterback, and they did that well. And they should have made the Super Bowl, you know, the year before too. It's you never know. You just never know who's going to come along. So even Romo, when Romo took over, I mean, I remember that and stepping in for Bledsoe, and I'm like, who's this guy? Romo. Don't even know him. Didn't even know the name. And then he stepped in, and I saw the smile on his face. I saw him ducking, dashing, making great plays, taking chances. He threw a lot of interceptions too. He was like Favre that way, but just fun to watch and just a smart quarterback. And who knew? He came out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So maybe somebody comes out of nowhere this year or next year.
I hope somebody comes out of nowhere. Like last year, we were all kind of upset as Cowboy fans still in the free agency, and people forget it took a little bit, and then we got Cooks and Gilmore, and people kind of. I love those trades. I think they worked out for us. I think Cooks was very underrated this year, and I think Gilmore had a good year. But it really masked the fact that we don't do anything. Like Gilmore, if Gilmore wasn't 31 and cost it a 5th round pick, we wouldn't have touched him. If Cooks wasn't 30 and cost it a 4th round pick, we wouldn't have touched him. Everyone on Cowboys Twitter and everywhere, everyone's so pissed right now with the organization, with the ownership. This is the most mad I've ever been at the ownership, because if you're serious, first of all, I don't hate McCarthy as much as everyone else. I think he's a great play caller. I don't think he's a good coach. Exactly. If you're serious, you fired Mike McCarthy right after that embarrassing loss. You say, yeah, you might have had a good season. We're going to try something else, because you can't do that to a 7th seed.
Eagles get rid of people. Oh, no.
That's what I would have done. And after that, like if you're all in on winning, after that embarrassment, you make a splash. Now, I'm not saying I wanted Saquon. I don't think Saquon was a great move for the Eagles. He's a great player, not a great move. But you do go get a Derrick Henry, and you say, okay, here's our splash. Our run game's huge now. We'll make another splash. Patrick Queen. I don't want to hear about salary cap. The Dolphins had a worse situation, and they made moves. I'm tired of hearing Stephen Jones and the first word out of his mouth every press conference go, well, we got to pay Micah. Everyone has to pay everybody. The cap, I know it's not, but it's fake in a sense. You can move everything down the line. You can kick the can down the line and say, all right, we'll restructure. We'll pay you this year. And then Shohei Ohtani, I know it's a different sport. They're paying him when he's going to be in the retirement home. You can do these things and make your team good now, because you are good now. The team is really good. Like, I don't want to sit here and act like we don't have CeeDee Lamb, an all-pro receiver, and Dak, an all-pro quarterback, and Micah Parsons, all-pro edge, Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland, and it's a good team. You cannot. All we do is
Ferguson at tight end. I like too.
And Ferguson's great, and we have these Tyler Smith.
I think the Cowboys are just like the Bills. They're stale. They're happy to get there. They're happy to have 11 wins and get to the playoffs and get their fans' hopes up. And that's good enough for the owners, it seems like. And to me, Jerry Jones doesn't seem like the guy that would be a guy that would just be happy to get there. You would think he would want to get over the hump, but they just seem like they're happy to win a division, get to the playoffs, and then bow out and say next year we'll get there again. Where, when you keep doing that over and over again, I would rather be good and then go bad and rebuild again and get better draft picks. Because if you're in the middle, you're always going to stay in the middle. You're going to stay in the middle forever in any sport.
I think it's hard to care about winning when you have a monster truck rally every Saturday at AT&T. Brad Paisley's selling out shows. Like this is a business enterprise to him. This is not. This is not a team anymore. This is the Dallas Cowboys, the star. Marketing it's machine. A huge, and it's never going to change. It'll never change because we could be 0-10 and we'll be on national TV at 4:25 on Sunday.
He's going to sell out.
He's going to sell out that place every time it's the Dallas Cowboys. Don't you think this is? I know it's not, but maybe subconsciously, don't you think this is exactly what Jerry wants is to get your popcorn ready every week. We could implode or we can explode every week.
Yeah.
Tony Romo was the perfect Jerry Jones quarterback. It was either going to be, it was going to be must see either for a great reason or for a bad reason. He was either going to throw a game losing pick or a game winning touchdown.
Almost.
Yeah. Almost not. This is exactly what Jerry has marketed as this type of team. The window's not closed. It's closing. Dallas Cowboys Twitter was buzzing last night with apparently there's something going down. Something's in the works. It's going to be Dalvin Cook. That's not much better than what we have. But that's Jerry Jones. Let's get an old, washed up running back who once had a big name and who will fool the casual viewers to say that'll help us. Eric Hendricks was a great pickup, but it's only one.
But now again, like you were saying, Jerry Jones, or maybe doesn't want to win. I don't think that's the case. But making up with Jimmy Johnson now, what do you think about that? And bringing Jimmy Johnson on board as an advisor, I think that'll help, and people need to see that again. Jerry, though, I mean, it's Mike McCarthy. I'm not a big fan of either. We need a coaching change there. Again, you can't just do that every year. But the next couple of years, he's on the line. Dak's on the line. It's years ago, Tom Landry, when they got rid of Tom Landry, everybody hated Jerry Jones for that and Jimmy Johnson for coming in for that. Well, what happened? It turned out to be a genius move, and they won 3 Super Bowls and stuff in the 90s. So it's fantastic.
I just felt there's so many good coaches out there this year that were available.
Yeah.
That if you would have fired them the day after that game, there was so many good young minds that are coming up that he could have jumped on to get.
I agree. But the business end of it, like I said, I don't know if they could have got rid of McCarthy, how much it would cost them, who they would get in, how it would affect the team. They just gave McCarthy the reins last year to call the offensive plays. Do they want to see what happens one more year? Because you're going to be changing up the offensive play calling too. As an offensive coordinator, I know that too. When you switch over again, it takes a year or two to get the players on board, to get them to understand your language and the way you want everything done. So to just bring in a coach every year, it sounds great, but they might fail that way because it's going to take them a couple of years to rebuild. Are we ready to rebuild now? Not yet. We're getting there, though, to that point where we're going to have to maybe clean house in the next couple of years if it doesn't. But right now, I'm still hoping that we get a few more players in there and we can fill the gaps. It's still early, in free agency. I can't say that we haven't done anything yet. It's not over yet. The draft's not over yet. Let's see what happens and how they play. Because normally they draft very well, and they have in the last 5 years, except for this past year I wasn't happy with. But in the past, before getting Parsons and a lot of guys that they got, Smith on the offensive line there too, phenomenal. And he was written off. He was maybe the 13th offensive tackle taken, and he's come in, Tyler Smith, and been a phenomenal lineman. So we'll see what happens.
All right, to segue into our last topic, we're going to make this brief. We have talked a lot. Well, we can talk Cowboys. I can talk all day. Some of the shortcomings. The last is perfect segue. Have the Cowboys fallen behind in the NFC East? It's been a tough free agency. Rob, I'll ask you first.
Well, again, I don't know. We'll see. Philly always looks like they've got all the pieces in place. And again, this past year, people thought Philly was going to win the division. They were going to go all the way this year. Again, I think the Cowboys, they destroyed them the last time they played them at the end of the season there. And so you can't say, Washington's on their way up maybe. The Giants, I'm so happy that they signed Daniel Jones to a long-term contract last year. I was jumping up and down and cheering. So we'll see what they do, but hard to say. We'll see how the season plays out. It should be the Cowboys and the Eagles up there, but there's always a team in the background last year was on the brink that's going to, make themselves known this year. We'll see what happens.
What do you think?
I think the Eagles are almost exactly like the Cowboys, where they don't make moves. I think their team is getting older. I think they've reached their peak, so I don't think Dallas is losing out to them. I think the Giants are getting better. They signed John Runyon, the offensive lineman. The trade for Brian Burns, the linebacker, was great. And I think with the 6th pick, if they want to get a quarterback there and maybe sit him for a year behind Daniel Jones, or they could get a really good offensive lineman or a great receiver to help out with the offense, I think they're going to get a little better. And Washington has to get better with what they've done. I don't like Dan Quinn as a coach. I think that was a bad move on their part. But with the number 2 pick, they could get Jaden Daniels. They can get whoever they want at the 2 pick. They got Austin Eckler. They got a couple old Cowboys. They got Zach Ertz. They signed Bobby Wagner. They got Dante Fowler. I think they're going to get better. I think the Cowboys are lucky they're in a bad division that they have time to maybe not go all out and get the picks. But I think the Giants and Washington will be a little better, and I think Dallas and Philly are status quo for the year.
Yeah, I think the Commanders are going to be a lot better next year. I also think they've had the most overrated free agency. I think they've had a good free agency, but they took our backup edge. They took a rotational edge. They took our center, who he started for us, but he's a backup. He's a backup center. He had a mediocre year this year. That's just compared to his bad years.
He's average, yeah.
They can take him.
Yeah,
he's all right. They took Dan Quinn, which I was very happy about. He can go ahead and I wonder what happened last time he was a head coach of a team.
I think he's a defensive guy, but even he let us down at the second half of the season, Dan Quinn. So
Bobby Wagner is a good run stopper. He's like abysmal in pass coverage. Jeremy Chin, I love as a safety.
Chin, I forgot him.
Not a good coverage guy. Great run stopper. Great. So you Austin Eckler. No, I didn't want him at all, and I wanted a running back. He's slowed down. He's not a fast guy. He's not a premier running back anymore. I think they did a lot of what we usually do. Is like, here's a guy who was once really good. Here's the name, and now let's propel it into, we're making moves. I think they're an underrated roster. I love Terry McLaurin. I love Jahan Dotson. I think they have a great receiving room. I think they're going to draft Drake May with their second pick, and so I think they're going to get a lot better. The Commanders scare me, and for some reason, every year they scare me. Their edge, they got rid of Chase Young and Sweat, which I thought was kind of weird, but they still have Payne and Allen inside. So I think they made good moves, and I think if they draft well, they could be a 500 team that shocks people. I think the Giants are well on. They have a ways to go, but the Giants are one of the teams that are rumored to have contacted the Bears about the first pick. So if the Bears, if the Giants get someone like Caleb Williams, that's the guy who can change your future. And you obviously have to get more receiving talent for him, and you just lost Saquon, so that's tough. But I think the Giants have a couple years to go, although I think it's getting better. Paying Daniel Jones is still one of the head-scratching decisions.
We top
ever. That's true. You guys had Brock Osweiler. I forgot.
Russell Wilson.
I think the Osweiler one goes at one, and then we can put Wilson a little under. But the Commanders I think the Eagles have one of the best front offices in the league. I think Howie Roseman every year in the draft, like last year, Jalen Carter, and then Nolan Smith, who I know didn't make much of an impact in year one.
They draft all Georgia players.
I know they always love Georgia. You can't go wrong. Who they got? Nakobe Dean fell to them a couple years ago. Like every year, Jordan Davis, they get someone, Devontae Smith of impact, and it makes a huge difference. I don't love Jalen Hurts. I believe that 1 year was just, it was like Lamar, who is way better than Jalen Hurts, but Lamar's MVP.
We had an opportunity to get Jalen Hurts, and we got Trayvon Diggs instead, and I'm happy with that pick. And that's what we needed at the time, especially too. So you can't, even if you look back now and say, we'd take Jalen Hurts now. No, at the time when we got him, Trayvon Diggs was the best player at the most need that we needed, and that's what we got. And when you're talking about front offices too, San Francisco, it blows my mind the players that they're able to get every year. I can't
Johnny
believe
Lynch, one of my favorite all-time players.
Yeah.
We stayed with Elway. We could have had John Lynch.
That's the problem. The two best front offices in the league are two teams that are roadblocks for us. Like we can't get past the Niners because they're a great team. And and I don't think the Barkley signing was good. But like my thing is he's a great player, but their run game every year is one of the best in the league. Why would you? They needed. I would have paid
DeAndre Swift. They could have
absolutely would have. But I love how they got C.J. Gardner-Johnson back. That helps their back seven, which was a huge issue last year. Have we fallen behind in the NFC East? I think it's pretty much the same. It's going to come down to us and the Eagles, and I think the Commanders are going to shock a lot of people. I think I love Drake May. If they get Drake May, I think he completely elevates them to a different level. I think even without that's why it really pisses me off. We haven't really made an impact in free agency yet. Is without free agency, I think we're right there still. If you would have got Derrick Henry, like we can't go into next year with Deuce Vaughn being the number one. I love Deuce Vaughn. He's a short king. I love him. He's short like me. He's smaller than me, and he's in the NFL. I don't want him getting every bit of touches. I don't want
I
that.
hope that he would come on last year, you know what I mean? But he didn't really show it. I'm still hoping, you know what I mean? He'll do something in special teams or in the open field.
No.
But you can't run him between the tackles.
No,
That's
he
not
can't,
gonna happen.
he
I
can't
don't
get
see
every
it.
touch.
You
You
know,
can't give this guy
Now-
every touch.
Rico Dowdle, I think he's decent. He needs some more time to see some more touches and stuff. But again, he's a change-up runner. He's not going to carry the load for you either. So,
We need more. We need more. I'm
oh
hoping
yeah,
that what they've been talking about on Twitter, that they've been hearing things. I hope it's a blockbuster. I really, really hope it's not Dalvin Cook. It's probably going to be Dalvin Cook. And the more
I
I
hope
think about
not.
it, it's going to be Dalvin Cook.
Yeah. Well, if it is,
need-
I hope they get somebody else too. Then.
Yeah, you need to make a move. We have not seen Jerry make a big move since 2019 when it looked like Dak was going to be flipping burgers, and he said, "We'll go get Amari Cooper," and it turned around the season. It turned around Dak's career. Jerry's long time. I think it's the longest one. Thank you so much, Rob.
Thanks,
for
Rob.
coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah. And Reg, we can agree on DeMarcus Ware anyway as a great player, Hall of Fame player. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching episode 7 of Trash Talking.
I'm Reg.
I'm Ian. We'll see you next week.